We heard of like cope, we heard of denial, but I feel like this is just a step above that. It's like, okay, this product that we put money, time, and effort towards is not for you. It's like, what the fuck do you mean? It's like the idea of having a product that's for the widest possible audience is dumb, but you can stick to your core audience but still have a good product, and if other people enjoy that core experience, I think there's a way to do that in a way where your core audience is fine. And even when if new people roll up in the hobby, I think that'd be fine as well. But this idea of, oh, this isn't for you, oh, it's not, we don't want your money, we don't want you here, is just stupid. Like, even if it's true, it's one of those things that even if it's 100% true, it is still fucking stupid to say as a company. Like, you're not going to win any favors from people. You're not doing yourself a favor. You're not doing your audience a favor. The IP suffers as a result. And at the end of the day, you have situations like Marvel, DC, uh, Star Wars with Lucas Arts, where they just lose money on like every project that they come. Like, the reason I got to do a video about this, Kathleen Kennedy she says she's planning to leave, but let's be honest, that's coded for, yeah, I got fired by the consumers fired her because she has yet to release a good fucking product. Like, Mandalore was fine, but it was fine because of nothing she ever really did. It was good because it carried its own sort of like mythos on its own back, and it didn't piggyback off of other things, other mythoses, other ideas. It was like what the old, like the Wild Wild West type of shows were, but like the majority of things Star Wars comes out with are just range from bad to mid, and they're all out of ideas, but they've done nothing. And we're in a situation where not only do people not care for Star Wars, because the opposite of love isn't hate. The opposite of love in this particular situation is indifference. People are so goddamn indifferent to Star Wars that if it gets replaced by something else like anime, any type of other type of project, will be happy this happens because bad companies getting their comeuppance always makes people happy. And two, again, you have things like AI coming. So in the wake of AI, they're still trying these shenanigans where they treat the consumer like the baby daddy, where they demand your money, but they want you to just shut the fuck up and consume. And then AI comes and has the prospect of a better product, and these same people, like people in these companies, are getting fired because they think this way. Like CEOs, yeah, they get to ride their golden parachute, but how many times do they need to go off to another project, make it fail until they realize that they don't have the consumer faith anymore. So this game wasn't made for you, retarded. Is he talking about Avowed? Oh, down there, yeah. Not surprised, and it's odd that these journalists cope so hard for major companies. It's like, as a games journalists, your constituents should be the gamers, the people that watch your shit for information, not the companies that, wine and dine your ass, gives you free access to information into early access copies of games. I mean, yeah, the incentive's there, but is it ethical? Okay, maybe, but the consumer sees what the fuck's happening and will not agree. Like, you can argue it's 100% fine, 100% ethical. Okay, I don't care. Like, it's not in my interest, so it shouldn't exist.
How many times have you guys heard the line, "This game wasn't made for you"? How many times have you seen people running to the defense of a game and saying that, well, if you don't like it, stop talking about it?
Every single AAA game, or fuck it, an entertainment period, every single major project has these professional dick writers that have that idea that, oh, if you don't like it, don't buy it. Oh, it's not made for you. It's like, okay, who the fuck is it made for? They're losing money. And oh, if you don't like it, don't buy it. That's retarded, because if enough people follow behind that mythos, what you get are people not buying the prey. If enough people do what you say, then the question becomes, why does this IP exist if they're not making money, or if they're not doing the one thing companies exist to do, and that's sell a fucking product to the consumer. If they can't do the one thing they're supposed to do, why the fuck do they exist?
They go and they start posting those memes where it's, stop having fun, but they're still sitting on the couch playing the game. This game is great as long as you don't have anybody screaming in your ear telling you that it's bad. Stop seeking out negative commentary and criticism on a game if you just want to have your viewpoint reinforced. Stop hitting yourself. That's what you're doing at this point.
Yeah, and it's also this culture of toxic positivity that, oh, you're not supposed to talk ill of a product, you gotta be positive, even if the very people of the product and the project talks down to you. You just need to shut the hell up. Or even if it's just a bad product, like, again, they're trying to make games for this non-existent audience of people. They're trying to make art for this group of people who don't exist, who only exist, I guess, on paper, but in reality, they don't exist at all. And people see this is reflecting in the product. It's reflected in how much money they're losing every year. It's reflected even in the people trying to defend the product. Because if it didn't matter, if they'd take your money anyway, and therefore shut the hell up because I already have their money, why do they put so much time, money, and effort into glazing a fucking product that if it doesn't matter, it's going to make money? Like, why do they waste time glazing it and going after the consumer other than daddy issues and having this artificially created group of people in your head that you deem as the enemy, as the other? Like, this isn't a social club. Like my brother in Christ, you're a company, and you should fucking act like it.
He saw that somebody had posted an entire Reddit thread talking about me in my video on Avowed, saying that I am the one that's ruining commentary around games. I am destroying video games and the video game community. You guys are helping by watching my videos in the first place. Shame on you. The even-handed criticism that I had in my Avowed video, where I was relatively soft on them in comparison to just about any other game or any other studio, because there were parts of Avowed that I genuinely liked, and I like Obsidian as a studio. No. I'm the bad guy.
Yeah, even if someone has a completely out there, ridiculous criticism, I mean, is that not still valid? Even if he's the only one that holds this, the fact that even a single person holds an opinion, even if it's completely out there, it's like other people also do. So this idea that you need to skew commentary, skew, arguments just to fit, the right way of consuming art or the right way of having an argument is just dumb. It's something that works inside the head of the ideological individual, but whenever it is applied in reality, never works. Because people are allowed to have opinions, even if they're baseless, even if they're like they can 100% believe what they're saying, and you can't say they're wrong because they think they're right. What you say is that it's a baseless argument, but even if they have a baseless argument, they still have the right to speak it, and we should discuss it regardless.
Have you ever noticed a good game doesn't need anybody to run defense for it? It just exists. It's just there. It just does its thing.
Helldivers, Space Marines, Black Myth Wukong. I mean, should I go on? God, well, I can't even think of good. A game I play called Blood West. It's a very niche game, but Universal Nikkei Goddess of Victory, Elden Ring, Monster Hunter Wilds. Like games that stand on their own merit and don't need just this odd group of people coming out the woodwork to just, act like they need a run defense. Like the game just is. It just exists in its own microcosmos of entertainment. It doesn't need people to run to its defense.
So it got me thinking, what are the chances that these communities are the ones that have been ruining games? We've seen so many games come out to seemingly no audience. The quest for the mythical modern audience, where they seem to exist in certain social circles and social media, but the minute that a game hits the market, they evaporate.
And that's what the internet does. It skews opinions, skews ideas in a way that doesn't exist in reality. And this is a tactic as old as time itself. I mean, if you want to if you want to have the narrative, you have it, and you ban everyone that disagrees. You shut down any type of argument that goes against it, and all that's left is the narrative. I mean, this is how, oppressive regimes act. Not surprising, this is how companies act when selling their shitty fucking products. Man, this is the oldest fucking tactic in the books. And they know they're doing it. You know that they're doing it. They know that you know that they're doing it. But we have to play this fucking charade. Yeah, sure, fuck, whatever, man.
Where did it go? So it got me thinking. Who are these games made for? Why are they making them for them? And why aren't they buying them? Maybe it's not me ruining gaming. Maybe it's you. You know how we can take back gaming? You can start making games yourself, and you guys can do that with today's sponsor, boot.dev. We oftentimes hear people say, if you don't like the games today, well then go make them yourself. And here's your chance. I partnered with boot.dev, the smartest way to master back-end development to help you build your own digital empire. At boot.dev, you'll learn back-end web development from start to finish with Python and Go. And what's awesome is that boot.dev knows that not everybody can afford a full membership right away, so you can sign up for free and explore every course in read-only mode. You'll get all of the theory and content without any commitment. Then, when you're ready to truly level up, a membership unlocks interactive challenges, progress tracking, hints, and full solutions. Plus, as you build real projects, you'll earn XP, level up, compete on leaderboards, and rack up achievements, all while gearing up for a career where backend developers can earn a median salary of over $100,000 a year. Every project that you complete on boot.dev is a stepping stone to real-world success, turning your coding passion into a career that pays big. So head over to boot.dev and use my code LegendaryDrops to get 25% off your entire first year on the annual plan. Click the link in the description, join the community, and start coding your future today. I can't be the only one who thinks that it's weird that while, yes, in some circles, some of the avowed criticism can be classified as reaching, the vast majority of it is relatively fair and observable in-game.
Yeah, if enough people believe it, it doesn't need hell. It doesn't even matter if it's wrong, right? It could be a completely wrong criticism, but if people believe it's correct, then you have to address it as if it's correct and not just sit in your own echo chamber and in your own bubble and pretend, no, what they're saying is wrong and bad. Shouldn't talk about it, shouldn't even give credence to the argument because you become the unhinged individual. Like, even if the person we're talking about is unhinged, the minute you put your fingers in your ears and go, la la la, I can't hear you, you become the stupidest person in the room, right? You fly in from stupid town. I mean, do you want an argument? Do you want a discussion? Or do you just want, people that agree with you? Because if you just want people that agree with you and will shut the hell up just in fear of you spurging out, okay, that's the type of people you'll get. But you'll also get liars, people that just say what you want to hear, but they don't follow your ideology or your idea. They don't believe it, and they just wait until they can vote, and when that happens, they vote against you. Like, this is what you get from that idea. That's why in every online space where it's just rampant with people banning any political oppositions, any of that, yeah, you get a bunch of people that agree with them, but then you have unofficial, like, servers that have more people than the official ones. It's like, okay, you made a conquest, an ideological conquest, but what did you achieve? Like, you achieve absolutely nothing.
There has been an unbelievable amount of white knighting and running defense in the face of criticism and poor sales on Steam. Avowed is incredible, especially when you don't have a YouTuber lying to you. If you hate Avowed, you probably didn't play it. Stop comparing it to Skyrim. But if the game is so...
I mean, people also do this thing where they compare previous games to games in the past, especially if games nowadays cost more money, more people, more time, more resources. They demand more money from you. And then they still spit on you for it. Like, yeah, people will compare it to Skyrim. And yeah, I can not play a game and still say it's bad. Just one, based off my personal interpretation. Like, it's not logical. It's like if a game looks bad, like, I'm not going to buy it. Hey, and if a game looks like something I want, I will. I mean, this isn't politics, it's video games. You can't shame me into consuming a product. It doesn't work that way.
So incredible, then why does it need this much defense? The same trend then plays out in Avowed Steam reviews. Plenty of positive ratings, yet their words say they're underwhelmed. Game is okay. It's objectively mid. Wish there was a way to rate games I don't recommend or condemn. Some even go out of their way to tell you not to compare it to other games. This isn't Skyrim. Don't compare it to Baldur's Gate 3 or Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. It's this weird mix of gatekeeping and defensive posturing, as if people aren't allowed to be critical of something without being treated like enemies. Nobody is saying that you can't enjoy Avowed. If you do, that's great. But if somebody points out that they didn't, that's not an attack. It's called having an opinion. Suddenly, I start hearing that Avowed isn't made for me, that somehow I should have known not to buy it. Like there was some secret label that was warning me, but I had missed it. But last time I checked, well, open world fantasy action RPGs are exactly what I play. That's my genre. That's what I love. But apparently, there was some secret subsection of that genre that I don't fit into. How did...
Yeah, if you're going to make a type of game to fit, a type of demographic, and a type of playstyle, yeah, you're going to have people that compare it to other games of that idea. Like, this isn't new, this isn't interesting, this is like, yeah, no shit. Like, anyone with a fully functioning frontal cortex will understand that. Like, that is why people compare it to games like Avowed or games like Oblivion, because it's the type of game you're trying to make. And okay, maybe it's just let's say it's just a bad, what was it? There's just a bad game of that idea. Let's just say it's just bad. Sure. But, again, don't go after people for pointing it out.
How does that make sense? Oblivion is one of my most favorite games of all time. I just finished Kingdom Come Deliverance and now I'm playing the sequel. I have hundreds of hours in Skyrim and Fallout. I love The Witcher 3, so how am I not the target audience for this? Maybe the problem isn't that Avowed wasn't made for me. Maybe the problem is it was made for no one, because I've seen a lot of people arguing that games don't need interactivity, that realism isn't necessary, and that games like Avowed don't need to have those kind of features just for the sake of having them. All right, that's fine. Explain this. How does removing basic interactivity from a first-person RPG make it better? Please, take the time to explain that to me. How does it enhance the experience when you can't pick up objects, when you can't touch the world, when you can't interact with doors, when people don't move around towns? It doesn't. Oblivion and Skyrim are decade-old games within the same genre, using many of the same systems, yet they feel light years ahead in interactivity. And somehow, we're not allowed to compare them. And why is that? Because it makes Avowed look bad?
Yeah, again, they're trying to craft the argument, craft the narrative, and anything that goes against that, they're like, oh, don't talk about that. Like, again, old tactic. It's like if you try to point out the fact that rape jokes don't cause rape, it's retarded. People call you a rape apologist, that, this, that, and the other, and don't get me wrong, rape is bad. But let's not confuse the action with the joke. Like, this is just, it's an old, stupid tactic that, believe it or not, people fall for the emotional manipulation for some fucking reason. I wish they didn't, but they do, so it's just something that's going to keep happening.
That's the entire point. If a game that came out in 2025 is getting obliterated by a game made in 2006 and 2011, then maybe the problem isn't the comparison, maybe the problem is the game itself. Look at the lengths that they have to go to. Yesterday I saw a Reddit thread pop up that was talking about me and my video on Avowed. And it was titled, "The hate for Avowed has made me realize something. I just fucking hate gaming discourse right now. I just got done with a video reviewing the cope of a game and saying they should expect more from themselves. Honestly, why? Why does it have to be the best game ever? Why can't it be a good romp? People fucking suck and I'm sad and I'm over it, man."
Because they demand your fucking money. Like, I want to act like, okay, I work hard for my fucking money, therefore if I want to buy a product, it's the best product for my money. Like, do we need to pretend that this is a incorrect way of thinking about it? Why? Like, why have so little self-respect for yourself that you're willing to just accept a bad product? Like, what do you hope to gain from that? Okay, I guess you're in the good graces of your constituents and of just this group of people who don't care if you enjoy the product or not. You know, you appease them. And there is something to say about just being positive, you know, actually attacking, you know, the art and the thing and not be spurging the fuck out. Like, there's something to say about that. But if someone thinks a product's bad, like, they have every right to voice that. You know, even if it's in a way that you don't agree with.
The top comment read, "Honestly, I think it's helpful to remember that none of this is about gaming and it has nothing to do with the games in question. What we're seeing is a global level slide into extreme partisan rhetoric fueled by both organic and inorganic media algorithms, the same mechanisms accelerating divisive politics that are bleeding into every aspect of life. Watch for keywords, trending rhetoric, and viral talking points. You can find them, or some variation thereof, in every form of online discourse. I'm not arguing any vast conspiracies, only saying it's an evolving consequence of destabilizing global socioeconomics combined with new technology that has allowed propaganda and echo chambers to spread like wildfire."
Okay, so the internet. Oh, because the internet exists, because information exists in a way that anyone has access to it, and you can't just controlled internet activity and interaction. That's bad, and this is bad. Like, what the fuck are you on about, brother?
Fire. To clarify further, I'm not saying that all criticism of this game or others is invalid. Actual criticism has always existed and is absolutely legitimate. It's only the hyperbolic hatred using all the same keywords that is nothing but a byproduct of a larger dynamic. There are many vested interests in the world who trade on, monetize, and utilize humans' capacity for hatred and fear. They've always been commodities, and now they've become one of the most powerful products in the global market. I'm highlighting this because it needs to be called out. This is the exact kind of caustic, self-defeating discourse that is poisoning gaming culture and the industry. Someone reads a title, listens to 1 minute of a video, and goes crying into an echo chamber because they're afraid that they have the wrong opinion. Nothing in this entire thread disproves anything that I said, not one point. Instead of actually addressing any of my arguments, they go straight to political straw men, painting me as a grifter, right-wing agitator, or anti-woke, just so they can comfortably dismiss my opinion without actually having to engage with it. Because
yeah, these are emotionally charged arguments, emotionally charged engagement that adds nothing and achieves nothing. Again, from this, all you will do is just create people that spite you. Because imagine you work for a living and you work hard and you just want to enjoy. You have 2-3 hours a week and at most to enjoy entertainment, and then the entertainment's bad, and you're like, okay, well, why is this bad? Why is the game that existed in my fucking childhood better than this? And you say that, and an individual like this just comes out the woodworks, complete fucking stranger, going, what do you mean? What do you mean? Echo chamber? Echo chamber? Oh! Like, imagine how absolutely unhinged the working individual thinks that this online individual is, just for simply saying, okay, not even that this game's bad. It's, for all I heard, the game's just okay. Like, I looked at the combat, it seemed okay, painfully mid, I suppose, but it's just, is that what I want? Do I want mid, or do I want something like what Skyrim used to be? And we're talking Obsidian, a company that made Fallout New Vegas in like 6 months. And a lot of people agree Fallout New Vegas is just the best one. Not not out of like 1 or 2. Like, there's always contention with the older one. Oh, well, Obsidian even made the older Fallout, so what the fuck am I talking about? Like, the company that made good games making a game like this that is just meh. Like, people will go back and be like, why?
if you don't slap a label on me first, then you might actually have to consider that I, like many others, just didn't enjoy the game. Here's the thing, I don't talk about politics. I don't care about identity wars. I don't make videos talking about DEI, and that's one of the reasons why people like watching my videos in the first place. The only anti-thing I am is anti-bad games, and that video that I had made was about Avowed, a game that felt lifeless, that lacked interactivity, and it was a game that failed to meet my expectations as a fan of this genre. But these people can't process that. They can't seem to accept that somebody might just not like the game, so they have to invent some entirely different narrative, one where they are noble warriors defending against some political invasion, and they have to tell themselves that any criticism of a game is part of some orchestrated culture war, as if it couldn't possibly be that somebody just has independent thoughts about a game. This is the exact same kind of mindset that is hurting game development today. Instead of confronting valid criticism head-on, developers and their most vocal supporters are retreating into defensive narratives, dismissing critics as toxic, politically motivated, or somehow disingenuous. They are
they're actively closing their ears from the consumer and from general constructive criticism, because they're being told to by a bunch of man children, like by a bunch of grown-ass adults acting like babies, and being like, oh god, the culture, it's a culture war, oh! And because of that, like, you get games like this that add nothing, that achieve nothing, and it's almost like they are glad this is the case, right? Because they've already painted you, the consumer, as the enemy. Like, if you're in a situation where the consumer is the bad guy, the consumer is the enemy, I think it's time to do some introspection, my guy. Like, maybe the problem is with you and what you think and your ideology, not with the people that put food on your fucking table. Like, I know it's difficult to comprehend this. I know, I get it, but yeah, I think that's probably the case.
Unwilling to listen to actual feedback that could actually help them improve. So instead, they settle for reinforcing the same echo chambers that got them where they are in the first place. No one forced any of these people to watch my critique. They sought it out themselves, and they got angry when it didn't reinforce their own opinions. Nothing in that Reddit thread disproved any point that I made. Not a single commenter, not one of them offered a counter argument explaining why Avowed's design decisions were good. Not one justified why basic interactivity had been stripped from a game in 2025 and how that was acceptable. Instead, they made a conversation about me and content creators because it's easier to attack the messenger than to face the uncomfortable truth. When criticism cannot be engaged with honestly, when people go out of their way to label or dismiss anybody who disagrees with them, all they are doing is insulating developers from reality. This isn't just bad for discourse, it's actively sabotaging the future of game design.
Yeah, it ruins the product because now what you have is this skewed product that's for no one because they're not listening to the consumer. They're listening to these constituents online who, for the most part, don't even play games. Like, they hate the industry, they hate the people that are in it, they hate the consumer, but they just need to do this because it's their only way to grift. It's the only way they can actively grift is if they're in here and it works. And other people agree with them allow this grift to exist. And it just creates this false narrative and this unholy, skewed, disgusting product that no one ends up playing at all.
Anybody, if nobody is allowed to point out what doesn't work, how are things ever supposed to get better? This kind of defensive discourse sends mixed signals to the developers, and it creates an environment where studios have no idea who their audience is. Because when people just defend a game for the sake of defending it, when they attack criticism just to be a contrarian, they aren't helping a game, they're destroying it. This is exactly how we get games that are made for no one. Developers start chasing ghosts. They start building games for an imaginary audience that doesn't exist outside of social media echo chambers. Instead of focusing on what makes a game great, they're wasting resources trying to appease an undefined, ever-shifting set of expectations from a transient group looking for validation. It's how we ended up with games like Concord, Forspoken, Dragon Age the Veilguard, and more. Games made for Twitter discourse, not players. Games that weren't fun, but were constantly propped up by people that needed them to succeed for personal reasons. Look at the ridiculous...
Yeah, and games that, above all else, did not meet their expectations. Like, to be fair, Dragon Age sold quite a bit. Now, is that selling, like, does that meet, like, what they needed to sell? Probably not, because the game probably cost a fuck ton to make. But, again, that game sold. It's just people played it for a little bit. You know, they got duped once, and now people have absolutely no interest whatsoever in the IP, and it irreparably damaged the IP. Like, there's absolutely no reason why you would play Dragon Age Veilguard. Like, why would you? Why would you suffer that game? Like, even the people that defend these games, they don't, like, is it correct to say they don't play them? Or maybe they do for a very little, like, they're not gamers, right? They're not people who game. They're this non-existent audience of people that have daddy issues. They're the professional problem havers. Like, they have problems, You know, they find people to impose their issues on, but at the end of the day, they don't consume. Like they don't give their money. Like they give their lip service, and but that's just about it.
Priorities that make it into modern games today. Games designed around whether or not you can pet a dog rather than whether or not it actually plays well. This is why Ubisoft thinks it's worth bragging about how many cats you can have in your village in Assassin's Creed Shadows. It's why
And I already talked about that, and my argument is, what the fuck does that have to do with Assassin's Creed Shadows? Absolutely not. I got quite a bit of flack from that online and from people. Oh, what? Are you gonna get mad that you're petting a dog? Yes, yes. Because what the fuck does this have to do with Assassin's Creed Shadow? Again, what's the targeted demographic? VTubers, 50-year-old women, or guys that like sex and violence? I mean, it's not difficult. It's not a hard question. Like, can we have an adult conversation about this? Or are we just going to spurg out? Because we can spurg out. You know, you can spurg out, I can spurg out, and at the end of the day, you're not going to get my money. Even if you end up being right, you're not getting my money. But is that, if enough people think the way I think, like, you do just have a situation where you're hemorrhaging money. Like, you have a product that's for no one. You have projects that are announced, but that goes nowhere. You know, you have people actively running away from your IPs. You know, they're practicing the closed wallet technique. You know, that legendary technique that I've coined, the closed wallet technique. Yeah, people are practicing that legendary art of the closed wallet. And if enough people do that, you don't have a product, and okay, maybe you have a company for a little bit because you just have so much money, but shareholders are going to be like, you know, do what they're doing with Ubisoft and butt fucking them because, oh, you might be a big company with lots of money, but all the shareholders want ROI, and they're not going to have that off bad products. You know, zero faith in your products or your IPs, and then they'll end up going to war with you. And it's like, is that a situation you want? Or is imposing your daddy issues and acting like, oh, you're the most moral person in the world worth having a job or the IP or the company you work at or and the job you do? And to most people it's yes. The answer is yes. And if that's the case, do you not think you shouldn't have that job? Like, do you think that job should just be given to people that could actually do it? Like, again, I'm just asking the question. I mean, I'm asking the forbidden question. If you can't do your job, why the fuck do you have it?
developers are spending time designing pointless meme bait mechanics instead of actually refining their gameplay. Look at some of the most common demands that we've seen over the last couple of years. Does the game let me pet the dog? Why are female characters so sexualized? Baldur's Gate 3 would have done better if it was an action RPG. Elden Ring needs a difficulty slider, and it has an accessibility problem. These aren't real design critiques. These are discourse points. These are demands from people that engage with gaming as a conversation piece, not as a hobby. Developers keep prioritizing the wrong things, chasing an audience that only exists on Twitter and Reddit, and then they sit back and wonder why their games don't sell. Criticism is necessary. It's how this industry improves. It's how bad design gets corrected and good design evolves. But the second you start insulating a game from criticism, the second you start to punish people for legitimate complaints, you aren't protecting the game. You're ensuring that the next one is going to be even worse. You know, not to...
Yeah, and even if the criticism is unfounded and baseless, like, if enough people think about that, why? Is the community manager from hell actively antagonizing your constituents? And if the answer is yes, okay, we have a problem. Or did we add some design that, okay, on paper might be good, but in practice goes against what the consumer want. Again, if the answer is yes, let's take it the fuck out. Like, I mean, this really isn't difficult to understand if you're running, any type of business or in any type of project management setting. But these people, they're not businessmen, they're not project managers, they're ideologues. Like, they operate purely off ideology, and imposing their daddy issues. And at the end, it goes nowhere, it achieves nothing, and we're just right back at square one, you know?
Too long ago, I was bringing up how people are so afraid of criticism today. So many people are afraid of any type of negative discourse whatsoever that oftentimes you'll see somebody over on Twitter put out their opinion, and if it gets rejected or criticized in any way, they'll go protect it or they'll delete their account. That writer that everybody likes to hate, Listener Mercante, she posted talking about how anybody that was criticizing about, or some of the people that are criticizing about, aren't adding anything meaningful to the industry. I comment.
Again, even if it's bad criticism, faulty criticism, it doesn't mean you're not allowed to point it out or talk about it or be like, okay, why does a significant amount of people think this? Like, you have people whose entire job it is to do this, marketing. If the marketing team aren't doing their job, if they're just hired on based off nepotism, well, why the fuck do they have that job? I mean, am I weird for thinking this? Am I the bad? Did I fly in from stupid town? It's like if you have a job and you're not doing a good job, why? Like millions of dollars is spent on marketing and publishing, like literally propping up the image of a game. Like, in some cases, this was the meaning between life and death of certain games. How much publicity and publishing the game did. It was a matter of life and death. Like, it's something that's important. It's not something you can hand wave away. But for some reason, people don't want to do it, or people to say, oh, well, that's secondary to ideology. No, it's not. Again, you only really have the power to reach the expectations of your consumer. Like, your consumer, they don't have to do a fucking thing. They don't have to give you their money or add anything to help you out. Like, they don't care how hard it is to make video games. And it sucks to say, but, sometimes the truth is a little hard to heal and hard to comprehend. But that doesn't make it any less the fucking truth.
Back simply saying that that's funny because they're actually contributing with their money, which is likely the most important contribution of all, and protected. These are the kind of opinions that are shaping games. Game developers will always lean towards their fans because they're most likely the people that will buy the game in the future or their next game or whatever it might be. But the problem is that if you're not listening to those that are criticizing your games, if you're being protected from people that are trying to criticize your games, well, then your audience is going to get smaller and smaller each passing year. If you're down to the point where you have to have your fan base out there telling people not to compare a $70 AAA full-priced game to games made over a decade ago, you're in a real bad place. You're in a very, very bad place.
Yeah, they're in a bad place. They know they're in a bad place, but they're at this position where they can't do anything about it but double down. And this is where we're at. We're at the doubling down phase because they know it's like these companies, they know they're losing money. Like, they know, they know that they're losing money and that they've trodden down a bad trajectory. But they still intend on going down this trajectory regardless, even if it's at the detriment of the IPs or of the consumer. It's like they're going to keep going down this trajectory. And At one point, everyone sees what's happening. Like, you can't hide this from people. Like, you can't hide these things. Like, everyone can see this is happening at one point, but again, they're in a position, well, where they have no choice. They have no choice but to cover their ears and be like, la la la, I can't hear you, la la la. It's a position they put themselves into.
This is why we get tone deaf games. They are making games for their protectors. And these folks are contrarians. They see people that are out there and they see themselves as white knights and they have to defend the game that they like because, well, they can't have a wrong opinion. And the only way to not have a wrong opinion is to go after those people. Anytime they see negative comments, it sends their blood pressure up over 140. They're pulling their blinds down and checking out the window to look outside. Negative discourse can't exist. And because of that, it's painting an incomplete picture for some of these games for what a general audience actually looks like. And that's why they're not finding an audience that resonates with some of these games. And now while the players are definitely making their contribution to muddying the water and making it difficult for some of these studios to nail down who their audience is, it doesn't help that these developers are looking in all the wrong places as well. I saw a tweet the other day from Michael Dowse, Larian Studios head of publishing, and it really hit the nail on the head because he was talking about how so many of these big budget games don't actually tell players what they are before launch, nor do they understand who that audience is before they launch. They rely on billboards, hype, and broad marketing campaigns, but they fail to build any real relevance or resonance before they release. It's a
Yeah, they're trying to literally, like, pull the wool over your eyes and trick you. And it's like, okay, like I said, you can get away with this once or twice. And hey, fair enough. Like, you get your victory. But you hit the Star Wars situation pretty fast. Like, now no one wants to buy your shit. Like, now no one cares for Star Wars. And same thing with Marvel and DC. I mean, maybe a couple of people care for DC still. But again, no, after that, I think after that, what was it, that Joker movie? Yeah, I don't think people even care after the Joker movie. Because people see this trend happening in other IPs and with other companies, and they're just like, well, why the fuck is every single IP of every single entertainment company going down this trajectory, and we're acting like it's not. But again, as a consumer who works hard for my money, like, yeah, I'm going to look for these things. I'm going to look at trends. Like, these are things the company themselves should be doing. Like, this is literally the company's job to do these things, but I'm having to do it for them just to ensure that I have a good, like, make a sound purchasing decision. And then I get yelled at when I point it out. Like, what type of fucking situation is this we're in? And enough people think like this, and it doesn't matter. At one point, it stops mattering if the IP is actually good. Like, it matters more how people perceive the game. And, okay, you have some situations like Kingdom Come Deliverance where there's a lot of predisposed perception, but people still bought the game. But, I mean, Kingdom Come Deliverance is kind of an outlier. I mean, you had a lot of normies that bought it, which is fine. But the zeitgeist didn't really reach to the point where it lost money. But you're going to have situations like, I don't think anyone has any faith in Obsidian. Like, I'm kind of weary about Outer Worlds 2, even though they're trying to be, I don't know, fucking Borderlands. But no one has faith in BioWare. Very few people even had faith in EA. I mean, they published decent games in the past, but, like, No one cares for Blizzard. Very few people care for Riot Games. I mean, you're just in a bad situation all around.
Completely avoidable disaster, but it keeps happening because these games are assuming that they have an audience before actually trying to earn one. And that's where this industry keeps going wrong, because for years now, publishers have still been relying on outdated methods to try to figure out what players want. Metrics, surveys, focus groups, and curated fan feedback that's painting a imaginary picture of what that audience actually looks like. Now, what makes matters even worse is today's modern internet culture, where people don't actually say what they think. They say what they think they're supposed to say. They posture, they virtue signal, they perform for social approval, and if you're a game developer that's listening to that, well, you're going to get wildly inaccurate data on what players actually want. That's how we end up with insane takes like PC Gamer's recent article claiming that today's teens and young adults aren't interested in romance in video games.
Yeah, and that's some bullshit. That's that's the type of shit you just say just to look good. Like, that's complete bullshit. And look at any type of role playing game like Mass Effect, even if it's blase like Skyrim. Hell, fucking gotcha games and visual novels. Like, look at the popular ones of them, and that alone proves that incorrect. Like, again, we're talking art. Again, like, Thanos and Eros has existed since the Holy Roman Empire, and these are not concepts in art that's ever just going to be artificially erased because you want to will that uh, into reality. Like, people will care for, violence. People will care for sex in fantasy. And if you don't, okay, fine. You're just not part of the conversation. Like, I don't really know what else to say. If you do not care for these things, you're not part of the conversation that we're having. Like, you're an outlier. And that's fine, but don't then turn around to me and be like, oh, the way you're looking at this is bad. Like, shut the fuck up. I can look at this however fucking way I want. It's my goddamn money. Like, if I want to hold the incorrect fucking opinion on this, I can. It's my fucking money.
Really? The same teenagers and young adults that are obsessing and shipping Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail characters, the same ones fueling the insane success of visual novels and dating sims, they don't want romance. Interesting. But because a survey told them otherwise, now developers are going to run with that and take it seriously and start making games under the assumption that this is what people want. This is what...
Yeah, and they tried to do this because, again, there was all these, like, developer ideas, and in, like, the early 2010s, the idea was, oh, you can't make difficult games. So you'd have games where you literally couldn't die. Like games like the first BioShock, where you can just keep running at the Big Daddy, bashing his head in, you die. You run back, he keeps his health, so you keep bashing him, you die again. You run at him again, and eventually you'll kill the Big Daddy because your death didn't mean anything. And believe it or not, BioShock Infinite fixed that, where if you died, you lost 50 coins, and if you ran out of money, it corrupted the save, and you had to restart. And again, games like Elden Ring, where the point is to die, because that's how you actually learn to play the goddamn game. It's like, that was the developer idea back then. Wholly, weird, odd idea that, again, they tried to impose on the consumer, but at the time, people didn't care and were like, okay, these are things that most people didn't really look at or care about, but it's things I cared about. I mean, difficulty is fun. I enjoy playing difficult games alone. It's kind of boring playing it with people, but when I'm playing it alone, like, I want to be challenged. That is if the difficulty makes sense. I mean, if it's Total Warhammer where it just adds cheats, the higher the difficulty, it's like, eh.
what happens when you rely on performative data rather than actual engagement. If today's teens and young adults don't care about romance, explain why Baldur's Gate 3 blew up over its character interactions. Explain why Love in Deep Space pulled nearly $500 million in revenue. Because here's the
Because again, do you have what there is being imposed versus how people actually fucking think? That's the problem. They're trying to impose this idea that, yeah, people don't like romance. And that's going smack dab against how people actually think, which is, I want my fucking waifu, goddammit. Give me my waifu. And so many times this happened, and at one point it begs the question, what the fuck's going on? And we're at the point where people are asking what the fuck's going on. That's the point where we're at. But no one wants to even have the discussion. All people want to do is spurg the fuck out. When you ask, okay, why the fuck are you not selling a decent product? And then you have their constituents, going on, like, defending them. And in some cases, and in most cases, it's just anti-consumer behavior. Like, they know, like, the product will suffer because of this notion. Like, they know you as a consumer will just get a worse product from this line of thinking, but they're forced to do this anyway. Which is why I just don't really care what other people think. Like, I want my anime waifus, I want sex and violence in my games. I don't care what anyone says about it. It's my fucking money. I don't need to justify it to you. And look, and we need to re-erect this barrier where what people want in fiction and reality are two separate things. Like, we need to recreate this wall, because this is how I think. Now, it's difficult to explain this to people who are Karens, people who view everything ideologically. And it's like, oh, if the things you like go against their ideology, they try to make moral aspersions on you. But again, that's just not how I think, and I think you're the weirdo for thinking this way, not me. I think the way most people do, but again, they might not be able to articulate that this is why they think, because they know it's difficult to explain to people, and they know they might butt heads with the Karen, with the ideological individual, but fuck it. I'm gonna just straight up say it. Cause why? Because it's my fucking money. Do you want my money, or do you want me to say what you want to hear? You can't have both.
The thing, surveys, focus groups, and social media feedback today aren't about truth, it's about posturing. We live in a world where people unironically call a 21-year-old a former teen in a protected class, where any romance in media is scrutinized under a moral microscope, where people are constantly worried about how their opinions will be perceived. And when that's the environment in which you're conducting surveys, you are never going to get honest answers. That's why the best way for you to be able to understand what players want isn't to ask them, it's actually just to go watch what they're playing. Look at the games that have stood the test of time. Dark Souls didn't need to pander to younger audiences to be loved by younger players. Elden Ring didn't need focus groups to figure out whether or not it was a worthwhile investment. Baldur's Gate 3 didn't need to be rewritten for modern sensibilities to be the biggest RPG in years. Marvel Rivals doesn't need to have socially safe designs to be popular. The most successful games across multiple generations are the ones that focused on simply being great games. They weren't built for a specific demographic. They weren't designed to be socially approved. And that's what made them timeless. But
yeah, and again, you have all these grifters that are probably in positions of these companies that do this. And again, they think they're doing empire building. Like, they know that the product will eventually be skewed away from what the consumer wants, but they don't care. Like, this is what they want. Like, they've already classified you as the enemy, as the bad guy. And they're willing to do anything they can to spite you and go against the things you want. Which is why I just do not acquiesce to people like this. Like, and I don't care what ideology they have. It's like, if you don't work in my interest, like, we cut it off there. Like, we no longer have, a business agreement. Because you're ideologically charged, you're ideologically possessed, you're imposing your daddy issues, and above all else, you're not giving me a good product. And because of that, I just don't care what you have to say. You know, you can speak from the mountaintops all you want about how I'm a sexist or whatever, or whatnot, or a racist or whatever. I don't care. You know, these are emotionally charged arguments that lead nowhere. They go nowhere. They add nothing. And people just don't care. Like, people have hardened their hearts. Like how the Pharaoh hardened their hearts against God when trying to free the Israelites. People have hardened their hearts to these emotional, manipulative tactics. Because, okay, it might have worked the first. It works the first time. It works the second time. Hell, it may even work the third time. But the fourth time, you have people being like, "Look, fucking idiot, pussy ass nigga. I ain't gonna fall for this no more. Fuck off." And once that happens, lo and behold, you have no power over the person. Like, they don't fucking care what you're saying. They don't care about you. Like, you've lost all power, all manipulative power over that person. Like, you're just a fucking nobody. Like, you have no power here.
But I think the biggest mistake that these developers are making isn't just using bad data, it's that they're trying to forcefully blend audiences that don't need to be blended. Instead of committing to a clear vision, they're trying to make a game that appeals to both youth and adults at the same time, and in the process, they're making games that don't resonate with anyone. I can't be the only one that's noticing how many mature-rated games are suffering from an identity crisis. They want to tackle mature topics, but they refuse to actually write or present them maturely. They soften the language, sanitize the characters, and dull the edges of their stories, leaving players with something that feels completely disconnected from its own themes. The reality...
Yeah, and again, you have, like, this odd, like, because I watched the Xbox Pass presentation with the games they're making, and they're making games that look interesting and, you know, have interesting settings, but they look like they're being made for, like, 15-year-olds, like 12-year-olds, like children. Like, we need, again, erect this wall between art for adults and art for children. You know, we need to rebuild this idea that, okay, if it's art for adults, you can show a titty and it be fine. You know, people won't shrivel up and die, and if you do, I guess in that case it really is not for you. You know, and that's fine. You know, find the things that you enjoy, but you stay the fuck away from the things I enjoy if you intend on changing them. Because I'm not going to acquiesce, right? I don't fucking care if you have a problem with what I enjoy. And you're not going to convince me. You know you're not going to convince me. So this back and forth we're doing is just useless, pointless pondering and just needs to stop. And again, if you try going after the things I like, well, the question is now, what the fuck do you like that I can go after? You know, this is the type of individuals you create. Again, if you don't negotiate with someone, if you don't actually try to have an adult conversation, you just spurg out like an impudent child. You create people that are like, okay, I'm going to find what you want. I'm going to find who you agree with, and I'm going to vote against you. Like, spite is a hell of a motivator. It's a very powerful motivator. And if you put people in these positions, they will absolutely use this tactic and use this against you. So the point is to not to do that. Like, I mean, treat people the way you want to be treated. If you don't treat people like shit, yeah, people want to treat you like shit back. I mean, it's not difficult. Like, it's just, you learn this as a child, but this is just how human beings act, period. I mean, and it's not entirely logical. Well, it's logical in the sense that it's an understanding of how human beings act, but, you know, it's one of those things that everyone demands everybody else act in a specific way that makes them comfortable. But then when it comes to you, oh, you can do whatever you want. Okay, well, I guess I can too. Oh, you're not allowed to do that. Why? Why?
reality is mature games, or any game for that matter, really doesn't need to be designed for a specific age group. Great games are ageless. Everyone appreciates a great game, regardless of their age, and the moment that you start tweaking the language, tone, and the content to be able to pander to a specific demographic is the minute that you're going to lose the entire audience altogether. This is why, from my perspective, I don't think it's really worthwhile to target age demographics specifically in video games. Unless you're actually making a game specifically for children or specifically for adults, there really isn't any reason to design a game around who it should be for. Instead, you should be focusing on what makes that game engaging. Look at the game.
Yeah, to an extent I agree, because I mean I played a lot of violent games when I was under the age of 18, and again, to me, like, yeah, my mom probably would have had a problem, my parents probably would have a problem. I remember playing that what was it, Midway, or was it Medal of Honor Rising Sun, and the very first part of that game was, you know, the ships and the carriers blowing up and a lot of people dying, and you can see them floating in the water. I remember my cousin flipping her shit for watching it and telling me to play a different game. I was like, man, what the fuck is wrong with you? But yeah, I understand that, you know, what I see in entertainment doesn't agree with other people. But again, now I'm an adult and can gladly, you know, consume that entertainment. Again, to be fair, I'm not a sick person. Again, we need to re-erect this barrier that what people like in fiction isn't what people want to see in real life. Because I know this is the idea. This is something people say that sounds good, but when actually applied in reality, makes absolutely no fucking sense. Especially when it comes to even the things they're into. But when it comes to what everybody else is into, they'll hold this illogical position. Like, we need to completely erase this and have people act like grown-ass fucking normal adults.
Games that have stood the test of time: Halo, Dark Souls, Final Fantasy, The Elder Scrolls, Zelda, Super Mario. People who grew up playing these games didn't stop loving them when they turned 30, and guess what? Teens and young adults that are still playing those games today love those games for the same reasons. The things we loved when we were younger shaped our preferences when we got older. How many people still listen to the same music that they loved in high school? How many games do we still play that defined our childhood, or games that are like them?
To be fair, I mean, you probably grew up at around the same time I did, with the golden age of entertainment, where there was just banger entertainment on the radio, banger entertainment on the TV, banger games, banger movies, right? Midnight releases. Like, it was just a good time for American culture, and yeah, for the majority of Americans, it was just nerdy, weird shit, but for the rest of the fucking world, it was like, yeah, American looks like a cool place. Why? Well, we're looking at American entertainment that is moving their culture throughout the world through soft power. And it's like, yeah, America's pretty cool, right? And this is something that I think we should go back to, you know, investing into just good American entertainment across the world. But I mean, I get it. That's not what we're gonna do, because you know that type of people in power are probably the type of fucking people that believe games cause violence. You know, that stupid fucking idea. Because there's an entire moral fucking panic about people playing games and committing shootings, and then the lawyer would tell them, oh, tell them you play Call of Duty. And it'll make everyone more sympathetic and probably get you a lesser sentence, and they did that. And again, it just spawned an entire generation that believed a lie. And if you even try to point it out, then I'm the bad guy. It's like, okay, that's cool. Like, I get it. People don't want to admit they got played. I get it. But, I mean, can we be adults for once?
core of what we find cool, exciting, or engaging stays remarkably consistent throughout our entire life. That's why games don't really need to fit a tailored specific demographic. It just needs to tap into the fundamental love of excitement, challenge, and immersion. Yet for some odd reason, modern game developers, specifically in the US more than other places, don't seem to really understand this. Instead of making a great game, they're obsessing over trying to appeal to two different audiences at the exact same time. Adults because they have the money, and teenagers because they think that's the best way for them to stay relevant. And as a result, we start seeing these games that are these Frankenstein monstrosities that are trying to be everything for everyone, but end up resonating with no one. Look at Veilguard. I keep coming back to this game, but it really is the perfect onion of poor game design and audience recognition.
There's going to be case studies. There should be case studies in business class about what not to do when selling a product. And on the page number 1, it would be like, Concord. What other things? Like what Nike did when they outsourced their shoes to places in Asia that paid people pennies on the dollar. The creation of Fanta, which, look it up, very interesting situation. Fordlandia, that failed American experiment in South America. And just have Concord, Veilguard, and all this thing with USAID aid be put in that class. Like, we generally will look back on times like these as what not to do. And obviously the people who do these things, they have a political slant. Like, look, if you would have just left people's fucking video games alone, you probably still would have lost the election. But, you wouldn't have had a monumental loss of proportions that no one can even begin to expect. Like, we're talking a president that won the first a popular vote for the first time in 20 years. And it's like, we're going to look back on this and you probably guaranteed you'll never be back in power. Like, you probably got away with grifting, and you probably got away with making money off the U.S. taxpayer now, but you will never be in power for I'd say the next 10 years, really. Like, you guaranteed just this. People will do everything in their power to not go back to what we had the past fucking 4 years. And here I go again talking about things that have nothing to do with games. Let's go back on this.
Or you peel back, the more misguided you find it is. Think about it. The characters in the game, androgynous and sterile. Yet for some odd reason, they include romance. Why would you put romance into a game that you can't actually be attracted to the characters that are in the game in the first place?
Again, you have the HR lady who has a political ideology that we want to pretend just doesn't exist because people just can't have this thing of critical thinking. You have, people who are hired on specifically to fuck with the game developers and to fuck with the artists. And they add nothing to the art. They add nothing to the game. But they're hired on, I guess, to maybe cover the ass of the company. Maybe, possibly. But they add nothing. They make the process worse, harder. They make it take long. And they demand you pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for them. It was a grift. Like, they grifted off these positions of social, I guess, clout, or the position that, what's the word I'm looking for? These social positions and social ideas. And they tried to convince companies that, oh no, this is what people want nowadays. According to this online echo chamber of people that banned anyone who disagreed or anybody who was just has slightly conservative opinions. Like, yeah, this is what people want. And then they imposed that, and lo and behold, that's not what the consumer wanted. And lo and behold, now they're just losing money. Like, to nobody's surprise. Actually, no one's surprised this is happening. This is a no fucking duh situation, but they have to pretend that no, in fact, this is what people want. To try to pretend, I guess, defend their position, defend their job, that they do really nothing in and add nothing towards.
The writing was over-explained, infantilized, and completely disconnected from the game's supposed mature themes. The core fan base, likely in their 30s, get treated like children. This is why so many modern games end up feeling soulless, because they aren't being designed with a strong creative vision. They aren't being designed for a real audience. They're being designed to pass through multiple layers of corporate approval, sensitivity checks, and marketing analysis, stripping...
Yeah, and they're also being mass produced. Like, they're trying to mass produce art in a way. And again, when this happens, yeah, you will have a fall in quality just as a base. You know, there is a level of quality that will suffer as a base when this happens. You know, above the ideology and above companies trying to cover their own ass. You know, above trying to hire, you know, diversity hires and this, that, and the other. Like, you with all these things, you just will lose the integrity of the art, the integrity of the product, the integrity of the IP, because you only have so much time, so much money to spend towards these things, and things going towards the like this, and the bureaucracy is going away from a good fucking story. This is why indie companies are clapping cheeks, you know. And again, you never think it'd be a time where indie companies are blasting ass over AAA companies, but that's absolutely what's happening.
Away anything that makes them feel personal, passionate, or bold. Instead of creating something great and letting it find its audience, they're trying to chase some imaginary audience that doesn't actually exist. The best games don't need to be age restricted to find success, they just need to be authentic. That's why games like Elden Ring and Monster Hunter pull players from across multiple generations, because they focus on gameplay first, and that's the most important thing. They don't compromise to fit some imagined modern sensibility. They don't try to be everything for everyone. I get that my criticism and language at times may be colorful. That's because it's authentic. That's because I'm saying what I mean, and I mean what I say, and my opinions, I'm expressing them openly. And I'm gonna get some critical feedback out of it. I'm gonna get some people that are critical of me, and guess what? I listen to that stuff because that's how you get better. You need that to be able to improve. But when you have audiences that are out there that are trying to shield games from criticism, shield these developers from the people that don't like their games, well, they're doing far more harm than they actually know. And also, it's just rat behavior, and it deserves to be called out.
Yeah, and they know this is happening. They know they're like the product's suffering. The problem is, do they care? And again, it's a grift. They're making lots of money in these positions. I mean, they care as far as they can maintain the position, but if they can't anymore, you know, then they'll have a problem. But they're fine making money at the cost of the consumer. I mean, the ideology that's being used here is that of wealth extraction. You know, they want to just extract wealth, extract positions, and impose morally on people. And this works for a little bit until the people vote against you. And that's what happens in the elections. That's why these companies are now falling over each other, getting rid of DEI. Like, these are things that were imposed to cover companies' ass, and they were imposed as like fear tactics, but no one actually wants to deal with this stupid shit.
It's disgusting. You know, these companies have to adjust and adapt. Their methods are outdated. The internet is often inauthentic. And because of that, you have misled creatives that are using performative developers to make performative games for performative audiences, a whole lot of pretending, a whole lot of bad data, and a whole lot of games without any audience.
Yeah, a whole lot of lost fucking money. You know, and again, maybe they don't care that they infinitely lose money. Okay, sure. But, I mean, people do care about their entertainment. They do care about how they spend it and what they do at the end of the day. And if you're just going to act against the consumer interest, you know, in whatever way, not how it doesn't matter how big or small you will, people will just act against you. Like people will put their money towards the things they want to see in either entertainment or other things, products of any type. And I mean, people vote with their wallets, and the problem is they're voting against you. And you can call them whatever emotionally charged label you want. Call them racist, call them sexist, call them this, that, and the other. But you're not going to get the money out of them. You're actively toxic towards the fans and the IP. And I think eventually, if you don't, switch your grift, I mean, will you have that job for too long? Probably not.
You need observable data. This industry is evolving to the point where it's becoming much more scientific. You need to actually observe your subject, see what they want, see what they're doing, and then iterate on that. Now, I've talked about this before, but I was in on Baldur's Gate 3's early access. Incredible journey. Developer notes were really detailed. The feedback that we would get, the panels from hell, the updates that they would do. The entire time, while they were collecting data, they were doing polls and stuff like that as well. But for the most part, they just sat back and watched how people interacted with the game. What did people try to do the most? What did they, what spells did they use? What classes did they pick? What choices did they make? They took that data and then iterated on it, and they just acted as a tailor, fitting it like a glove to the player. And that's how you get great games. That's what you have to do nowadays. You can't...
Yeah, like you have Assassin's Creed Black Flag that took just a mechanic from 3 and made it its entire game. Was it Assassin's Creed? No. Was it a good game? Yes. I mean, people sing the praises of Assassin's Creed Black Flag to this day, right? And this isn't something that happens in a vacuum, or this isn't something that, is a fluke. This is what happens when you actually do what the consumer want and work in their interests instead of doing the complete opposite, which is what Ubisoft technically is doing now. Doing everything in their power to piss away that goodwill, and gladly so. Like, this is how you get a good product. I mean, it's difficult to do, but it's not difficult to understand. And we know, like, Ubisoft used to do this. Like, this used to be something that was, no shit situation in Ubisoft. But now, I don't know. I don't know who all's they hired or who all's still at Ubisoft that they hired that is anti-consumer. But, I mean, I disavow, and the shareholders agree.
Come up with some pre-designed audience anymore. That doesn't work. You can't go and read social media. You can't watch, you can't listen to like things that are said on Twitter or on Reddit, because oftentimes people aren't really saying what they mean. They're just saying whatever they can to get the most people to agree with them because they need that interaction.
They'll either say the morally right thing just to have people go like, "Yas, honey, yas," or on the other hand, they say some of the most unhinged bullshit that makes you do a double, triple, quadruple take and be like, "Wow, could someone with a fully functioning frontal cortex actually think this way?" And the answer is yes. And you're like, "Huh. Interesting."
Need to be accepted, baby. Right here. Get that validation right into my veins. But that's what you have to do. You have to ignore that kind of stuff. You have to be dynamic. And I think a lot of these companies are still stuck in their ways. And because of that, it's leading to a lot of these games failing to find an audience.
And again, I talked about this. You had that the goddamn that CEO of Lords of the Fallen who ran a poll that was like, okay, do you want us to get rid of this male and female or this body type A and B and put back male and female? And people overwhelmingly said yes. And the fucking community manager of the Lords of the Fallen subreddit banned the fucking CEO from the subreddit of his own fucking game. Like, these are the type of people we're contending with. People who are fighting this fictional war against just people, just in people that they have erected in their head, and is now going to impose on you, the person, the consumer. Like, these are the people we're speaking to, and you can't rationalize people out of this position because they're holding irrational positions that under no circumstances will they leave. So you kind of just gotta be like, okay, you're a fucking idiot. Get the fuck out of my face. I don't want to deal with you. Fuck off. And I'm gonna put my money towards the things I want.
I love topics like this. You guys got to keep in mind, I am a marketing major that got into construction. I have a degree that I never got to use. It's the whole reason I made a YouTube channel to begin with, was because I wanted to understand what players' needs were. I wanted to understand how these games were finding an audience or how they were failing to find an audience. And I wanted to be somebody that could advocate for games to be able to reach audiences better. I think.
Yeah, but you don't need to be smart to know this, right? Like, it, again, in the past, when games were not popular, in fact, you were bullied for playing games, when games cost a fraction of the cost, a fraction of the people, a fraction of the time, they had a fraction of the technology, a fraction of the pixels, a fraction of the gigabyte. Now they're in kilobytes. And they just made good games, just objectively better games than games today made in 2025 of the year of the Lord. Like, can we discuss this? Can we have the discussion or not? That's really the question you gotta ask.
I think that once I get a little bit more comfortable with YouTube and I feel a little bit more stable on the platform, I'll probably start to try to get into at least consulting with marketing and, you know, customer outreach and stuff like that, because I think that personally, I think I could do a lot of help. I don't know. There's probably plenty of people that are out there, especially on Reddit apparently, that wouldn't want me to do anything of the sort. So
again, like, you hire people at your company to do these very things because you know it's important as a company how you're marketing and your brand. Like, you know this. But for some reason they hire people that don't care. Like, that gives them lip service, but they don't actually care for the consumer. They don't care for the product. They don't care for the IP. But they demand your money. Like, God forbid they don't get your goddamn money while I spit on you. While I try to have this baby daddy relationship with you that no one with any fucking, like, two neurons to rub together to form a synapse would ever accept. But it's what they want. It's like, we have hundreds, if not even, think about thousands of years of expertise in marketing. And we're just now, in the year 2025, shitting the bed and acting like, oh, we don't know. We're just throwing our hands up. We don't know what the consumer wants. It's like, what? I beg your pardon?
I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the
Long
video.
fucking
If you guys
video.
did, well, like the video,
Well, for
share it
me.
with your friends, follow me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter. People have been enjoying me over there. If you didn't like the video, well, I guess I'll see another post on Reddit. Outside of that, my friends, stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. I'll see you in the next one.
I mean, yeah, and again, like, anyone can see this and think that's retarded. Why are you making a game if this is your marketing. Like, what the hell are you on about? I like the game. This game wasn't made for me. Seems like a simple and trustful review. I mean, if they're going to, self-report on themselves, I mean, yeah, I'd agree. Wow, you know what I love? Being told a game wasn't made for me while simultaneously being told I'm the reason it failed because I didn't buy it. It doesn't make any. It doesn't matter what anyone does. You'll always have 50% of people pissed. Yeah. Yeah. No Man's Sky caught heat when it first came out. The criticism was solid. No one defended it, and the MSG was received loud and clear. Today, No Man's Sky is a great game. If we lose the ability to criticize product, we lose the ability to help devs make good games, and we get stuck with overpromised, overhyped, overwhelming trash. Yeah, and again, there haven't been many games in the past that weren't bad at first at launch that people crawled back at. Like, off the top of my head, we had No Man's Sky, we had Cyberpunk. I mean, yeah, that's really all I could. I guess Helldivers, but Helldivers wasn't bad starting out. They made a series of bad decisions. Then, I mean, they corrected it. But, I mean, you can argue that they overcorrected it. These aren't real design critiques. These are just discussion points. These are demands from people who engage with gaming as a conversation piece, not as a hobby. Preach, yeah. I mean, like they only have this one way of going against criticism, and that's treating you like the bad guy, treating you like the enemy, treating you like you're the Satan, the adversary, then attacking you. Like, this is the only way, the only thing they know how to interact. And again, it's just pure daddy issues, and it's not constructive. The people that yell this game isn't for you are awesome. Save me money. Thanks, bros. Yes, sir. This game wasn't made for you. Thanks for letting me know. I won't spend my money on it. Then, yeah. And again, if enough people think like this, you have situations that Star Wars are into. You have just bad situations that they have no idea how to get themselves out of because they've gotten themselves into these situations. And like I said, they've tried nothing and they're all out of ideas. Like, this is the situation you're in. Being a harsh Christian doesn't mean make me evil. Cannibalism does. Yahtzee. Got him. I would like this game to be fun. Angry mob noises in the distance. I mean, yeah, anyone wants a game to be good. Like, I want games in my catalog that I'll enjoy. The problem is, most of them are indie, well, which isn't really a problem. I mean, that's good. But it's also that most of them are like older games. Like, I need something new. I need new shit. This is who I am. I am the great consumer. I am he who scares moral busybodies because I don't care for your morality. I don't care for the ideology. I don't care for this Karen behavior. If it's a good game, it's a good game. Hell, I'll even play a hentai game if it's good. I do not care. I use whatever criticism you want from that. They can call me a gooner, sure, whatever. Call me whatever you want. I am he who scares the Karen and the moral busybody. But anyway, that's all I gotta say about this. Peace.